I remember feeling like there was this dark box inside of me that I had to hide from everybody. And I tried to make it smaller and smaller and smaller. And I tried to hide it deeper and deeper, just this black box with, my sins. And I tried to make them small and I tried to hide them. Well, my name is Diana Smith and I'm 35. And I've been going to Creekside for about 9 years now, much more sporadic at the beginning. I've been married for 9 years also to my husband Mike, and we have 2 kids, Joshua and Katie. And Joshua's 6 and Katie just turned 4. Well, I grew up in a family with just my mom and 2 brothers. We didn't really go to church, and it just wasn't a big part of our life. It was just maybe something we did sometimes on a Sunday morning. The whole relationship with Jesus was just not part of anything that my family did or what we discussed, or it just wasn't a real thing for us. And just using the word Jesus or Christ was very strange. God was the only word that was really part of my family growing up. In college, I became sexually active, and I was not married, and God was not the focus of any direction for me. There's a lot. Just one act is the sin against our God. And so I don't mean to imply that sexual activity was the beginning of anything for me, but it was the beginning of something that brought me to my knees before the Lord. So I continued in this life of sexual activity, and just like I said, it's very self-serving, and it's, what I kind of considered the typical college experience, and I kind of took pride in being considered like the most wild of my friends, and anyway, so eventually I did it. The thing is it doesn't manifest itself in every way of life. I still looked like a good student. I still looked like a good person to a lot of people. And yet I was probably so disappointing to God. And so I graduated from college, and I started at my job as, in my career at Hewlett Packard. And I met somebody. He was married, and he, complained about his marriage, and we did seemingly innocent things at first, like bike rides and tennis, but he was spending time away from his wife, and I can't imagine the pain that would have caused her. And eventually, we developed a relationship, and I was his girlfriend. And eventually I ended that relationship. At one point he said to me that he realized, or he said if he leaves his wife. And I realized at that point, he was sitting on my couch, and he said, if I leave my wife. And I realized that I was really the one that was making that a difficult choice for him, that if I hadn't been in the picture, maybe this wouldn't even be happening. And so I asked him to leave, and in my heart, that was the easy moment for me to part. Life continued, and I hid that, and I met my husband, who is my husband now. I'd met him before that, but we started dating after I severed the relationship with the married man. And I never lied to my husband about it. I was really open with that, and honestly, it was just by God's grace that he would have considered being with me, that he could overlook that. I don't know how a person can overlook it. It's just, I don't know how someone overlooks it. My husband and I eventually got married, and we got married in 2000, which is the same year that I really started becoming active at, when I started coming regularly to Creekside. But on one night, on February 18th, 2002, it was 7 years ago, I went to Bible study that night, and I kind of remember thinking in the car, it was almost like I was making a deal with God. And I said, God, there was 2 women. I don't know why they stood out as if they were the ones, but I said to God, if these two women are the last ones there tonight, I'm going to tell them. I'm going to confess this thing that I did so they don't have to pretend that, I don't know, this life of, like people would think I was perfect. I don't know. But it was kind of like I made a deal that night, and amazingly, those two women were the last ones there that night. And so it was so obvious that's what I was going to do. And everybody left. And I told them that I wanted to tell them something. And so I told them. And so that night when I told those women, they took me to a passage in the Bible, Psalm 103, verse 12. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed your transgressions, or else he removed our transgressions from us. And they walked me through these two women who I think the reason that I was able to tell them is I thought they were trustworthy, like they were trustworthy with the truth. I could count on them to share the truth with me. And I think that's why it was these women that I wanted to be there, you know? And so that night, I wanted to pray. These women were there to encourage me to accept Christ right then. I was ready, I guess they could tell that, and I remember just accepting. I didn't want to reject Jesus for what he had done anymore. As though adultery would be too big. There is none too big for Jesus. And so that night I accepted Jesus, and that was the night that Jesus became my Lord and my Savior. My name is Diana Smith. God is first, and I am second.